Another man done gone. Another man done gone. Another man done gone.
Hello, poker players. I'm Steve Celebrity, and I have a tournament hand for you. This is a $100 WSOP circuit event played in September 2023. This is a hand where the villain is a maniac, and the question is whether to tweak him aggressively or to play rope-a-dope against him. This was a six-backs tournament with 12-minute levels and 10,000 starting chips. 3 entries were allowed, and I entered about 1 hour into the event, but I had not re-entered. We are about 5 minutes from the end of the late entry period, and the money bubble is about an hour away. There were 808 entries, and I am in about 35th place with about 200 players remaining. I have about 60 big blinds, and since 90 players will be paid, I might just be able to fold to a cash, but probably a little bit too early for that. I look down in the small blind, and I find a beautiful pair of kings. The low jack opens to 2.4 big blinds, and the high jack calls. The maniac in the cutoff raises to 9.1 big blinds, which is about 3.8x and a pretty standard 3-bet size in this game. The button folds, and it's on me. Now, I had been playing at this table for a while, and I saw that Mr. Maniac had been very loose and very aggressive, opening or raising nearly every hand. On a few previous hands, I had raised him and took down the pot on the flop after he called my raise. He might not like me raising him again, but what should we do with our kings? Normally, there wouldn't be much doubt that I should raise here. But if I just flat, his aggressive nature probably means that he would bet again on the flop. Also, a flat might get a bit more money in the pot now. On the downside, taking a flop with 3 villains could be a very dangerous situation. So my inclination is to raise. But how much should I raise? Normally, a 4-bet from the small blind would be perhaps 3 or 4x, but the stacks are too shallow for that. So I would probably raise to about 2.5x, or about 23 big blinds out of my stack of about 60 big blinds. In a situation like this, I often just jam. But sometimes I 3-bet smaller, like 2x, and then just jam on a non-ace flop. We can use GTO Wizard to gain some insight into this situation. First, we set GTO Wizard to an 8 max MTT table, since this is one of the GTO Wizard models that is free. That's it right there. The 6 max model can be used, but it requires a subscription. We can just fold the first 2 positions in our 8 max model to approximate our 6 max game. I also chose 60 big blind effective stacks, since that is the stack size that I am putting at risk. This model is not exactly the same as our hand, however, because the low jack and high jack in our hand have less than 20 big blinds rather than the 60 big blinds that the model assumes. Nevertheless, it may be interesting to see what GTO Wizard recommends. The first 2 players are sitting out, sort of. The low jack opens, the high jack calls, the cutoff raises to 8.2, the button folds, and it's on us in the small blind. Our hand is King King, shown here, and this panel shows the EV for each of our allowed actions. We can see that this is a pure strategy raise to 18.1 big blinds. This is about a 2.2x raise, which is a little bit smaller than I had originally contemplated. But jamming is just 0.01 big blinds less profitable than raising. So for all practical purposes, we could do either one, even against Mr. GTO, without much loss in potential profit. Calling, however, is considerably worse, about 0.63 big blinds less profitable than either of those 2 actions. Okay. So we think that raising or jamming have similar EVs. So how do we make this decision to adjust to the actual players that we are facing? The most important factor is that Mr. Maniac is not close to being a GTO strong player. His 3-bet range is likely much wider than Mr. GTO, which means that our fold equity is likely improved if we jam. And if he calls too widely, our equity when called would be improved also. That makes our jamming expectation higher than the GTO model. So it seems that our decision should skew towards jamming, but most likely can't go very wrong whatever we do here. So I jammed, and it folds around to Mr. Maniac, who calls with Ace King suited, which is an excellent result for me since winning this pot would put me in about 7th place, about an hour before the bubble. The flop looks great. I'm in great shape now, but the turn sinks me, and the river doesn't help. So what can we learn from this hand? First, GTO solutions can be ambiguous. In this case, jamming and re-raising had similar expectations. Even flatting was nearly as good. Next, our read of the villain's playing style can be crucial to making the best decision. So pay attention to your table, especially when it's an important tournament. Don't sweat your decision when it's a close one. Sometimes we can't really make a bad decision. This is not uncommon in poker. A bad result doesn't mean you made a bad decision. You can do everything right and still lose the hand. I hope you enjoyed the hand. That's all, folks.